I'm Mark Miller. I wrote Savannah Smiles. I produced it and played one of the leads in it.
One more town.
Well, I really had a really great career as a TV actor. You know, I just played in everything. But no, I just did it because I got hooked on writing. I like writing. What I really love is to write a script, and whether I'm in it or not doesn't matter. But then what I love is seeing it in the theater with a full house. There's no experience in the world like that. Well, I get inspiration from people, usually. So my little Savannah, she came along. I have 3 beautiful, gorgeous angel daughters. And she is a little dividend child till my son came along, much later, and she was 6 years younger than her 2 sisters. And she had an afro of golden curls, of just unbelievable. They were so gorgeous, but it just curls all over the place. And a funny little face.
Savannah Smiles is about a little girl who is sad. She's lonely. Her parents are rich. She gets ignored. And she's looking for adventure.
There's this little girl. I started with a little girl. I had seen Grand Illusion, which is one of my favorite pictures, about the old guy, if you remember Grand Illusion, escaped from prison. Big, huge monster of a guy. A little kid comes in the barn where he's hiding out, and kids, they don't know who this guy is. And he said, "You look hungry," in French. And he said, "I am hungry." And she said, "Well, I'll go get you something to eat." So she came back, and she brought, I forgot what it is in the film, with a bowl of soup or something, and he's wolfing down the food and everything. I said, "That's it. I'll do a convict." A little girl escapes from her home and writes a little note because she's unhappy, and she hides out and playing hide and seek in the park in this getaway car of these 2 old convicts who are second-story men. They're not killers or anything, but they never had a home. They never had a life. They never had brothers and sisters to love, and mother and dad. They never had that, you know. And suddenly they got somebody to care for as a story, and they become this bizarre family. I write the script, and I showed it to a couple of producers, and they said, "Well, it's nice, but it's too soft, you know. You'll never get a distributor with this, you know. It's a really sweet little story. I liked it, you know, but it's just the market's too hard-edged, you know. You got to have some action. You got to have somebody get shot or something, you know, or a car chase or something." And well, I didn't get a lot of refusals or negative comments, but I did get a kind of, "It's too nice. It's not going to work," you know. So I said, "Well, I'll try to raise the money for this thing." So I go to a friend of mine, and who's a line producer. Anyway, he gets me a budget of $2.2 million. I said, $2.2 million? Where am I going to get that? So I'm fussing about this one day, and I had Don Williams was like a partner of mine. We're trying to a new partner because I had a manager that was stealing from me, and he a lot of money, not putting it in anything, putting it in his pocket. And I said, I'm gonna take you to court. But he said, "Listen, wait a minute. I'll help you out with your movies. I know a guy, Andy Williams' brother, and he's got an agency for country western singers. He had Reba McEntire and some big singers, and he's got lots of money. He knows everybody with money." He said, "Brother's got plenty of money. So I'll introduce you to him." So he introduced me to Don, and we became great friends. And I told him about this script. He said, "Hey, I know somebody that might do this. I got a friend, we played golf with him. He was a linebacker for Oklahoma University, but he's an oil man, and he's got oil wells coming and going, and he's got a jet airplane, private jet." So he took it, and the guy said, "I love this damn thing. What do you need?" So he said, "I need $2.2 million. So that's how he gave it to us. So then we lucked out as usual.
I came involved in the movie with Bridget being my daughter and going out on interviews. And she had been out on a few interviews of commercials, and she did a little TV movie with Lucy Arnaz's daughter. So that was kind of her first little intro into acting. And then there was this call for a movie, Savannah Smiles. So she went out for it, and she got the part. I was there when she went in several times for the audition, and they would ask her things like, tell us your favorite story. And so she told the story of Burr Rabbit, and they were so impressed that not only did she get the job, but she told that story in the movie. They added that as part of the movie.
This is the story about Burr Rabbit, and Burr Fox, and Burr Bear.
Yeah. Well, her dad had a part in that, as far as he grew up in the South. And so, you know, in reading the story, and when we would read the story to her, we would, you know, put in those accents. We're off to Utah.
Well, we had a short budget. We shot it in 8 weeks, I think, 7, 8 weeks. And Utah, all on location. We didn't build any sets. We didn't even build the set where they're holed up in the old house. That was all practical. We found a house that was empty. We shot in this house, and in the driveway, and in the kitchen, and the bedroom. It was all in this old house that was for rent. That nobody would rent it because it's so run down. But it made a perfect set, and even that wonderful scene where they come out with the flag and have the thing with Pat Morita in the driveway with the priest.
And Angelica, who's my second child, she was not even a year old, so she came along, and it was Bridget and my little baby and I, and we flew to Utah, and it was an amazing, wonderful experience. The people in the production, the actors, they just loved Bridget and took really, really good care of us. Pierre Demaro, the director of Savannah Smiles, French. Yeah, so that was fun. And his wife, they too fell in love with Bridget. So it was great. Also, just working with even the cameraman, the photographer. His name was Ziggy, is what I remember. But they played with Bridget. They just really brought out a lot of fun.
Pierre de Giaferi. Well, he had been with the Comédie Française in Paris and had directed a little picture in France, it was in French, of a little boy, lost boy, and he hides in an attic, and he's a scene with a candle, and this other person who's beautifully shot. And I said, Jesus, you know, this guy is unknown, but he's a hell of a director. It was a beautiful little film, a short little film, you know. And I just went with him. I had no money, and I paid him scale, and, you know.
Mark Miller, I absolutely love. Big heart, very talented. He actually wrote the movie for his daughter, Savannah, when she was little. And she kind of outgrew the part by the time they were needing to then cast the part. And so that's how the name Savannah came about. And Mark, and at that time his wife Barbie, they just adopted Bridget. It was like they became family.
I've always, if the composer is doing songs, whether they're pre-scores or post-scores, because anything can happen. Things happen during the scoring. Things happen during the filming. I've had films go away from me because they've changed, they've changed the sets and so forth. They've changed the story. Well, I was there to find out how close to the story they were. All these things have a life of their own, and I wanted to find out what was working, what we had to change, and all that stuff. I got advice from Miyagi, Mr. Miyagi. Pat's in the film, and Pat, again, dialogue changed almost from scene to scene, and that's not untypical for a shoot of this size. everybody wants a voice in it.
Oh, Pat, my director, Pierre, said, or maybe it was Clarky Palo. I was Clarky, my partner. He said, you should get some ethnic person to play the priest, like a black guy or an Oriental guy or something like that. Just give it a little color. And I said, yeah, that's a good idea. So I said, what about a Japanese guy like Pat Morita was a pretty well-known actor. So we had him in, and I said, Pat, this is not the biggest part in the world, but it's a very important part. He said, sure, I'll do it. So that's how we got Pat. But Pat was great, And then he got his own show because of Savannah Smiles. Well, like I do all my films, usually it's people I know, that I worked with. And so I just got actors that I had seen on screen or actors that I knew. And my wife played the mother of the little girl. Well, I'm a con man, You didn't know that, did you? I'm going to get big TV stars.
Peter Graves was funny. He was playing a part that was very serious. So I didn't get to spend much time with him or Bridget's part. They were trying to find her, so she wasn't discovered yet, so I didn't get to spend that much interaction with him, but professional, and it was fun to have Bridget working with Peter Graves and Michael Parks too. I liked Michael Parks. He would kind of talk about experience of acting, and probably give a little insight on it. So, and not to take it too seriously.
Well, Michael Parks said I revived his career because he had had problems, whether it was dope or something, I don't know. And he didn't work. He was sort of blackballed, He was a problem, It was never a problem with me. And he was so grateful to have that role. He was terrific. He was a good actor, man. But he got in a motorcycle gang or something, I don't know. But he was a pro. He got in there and did the work,
Absolutely remember Donovan Scott. Donovan Scott was a joy. He's hilarious. He also had a collection of videos that he brought with him. So we watched Popeye and a bunch of stuff, courtesy of Donovan. He's a wonderful actor.
Before Savannah Smiles, I also worked with Olivia Newton-John and did the now infamous Physical video, which was a lot of fun. She was great. She beat me up through the whole video. And she kept saying, I'll tap you. And I said, no, go ahead, hit me. She said, no. She was very shy. I said, hit me. And I slapped her leg like that. She said, don't do that. She slapped me back, and then bam, we were going at it and having a great time. It was a lot of fun. I'm working with Kenny Ortega, who I really like as a director. More than anything else I've done, I believe people have seen Physical.
Well, Donovan, what I wanted was a Mutt and Jeff, kind of Laurel and Hardy, really. That's what I was going for. So I got a guy who was totally different from me and a little overweight, and funny, just a funny little guy, and as a foil, which is the way those things work, those buddy things. They went in the early films. You had all kinds of buddy films. They worked as a comedy team. These people. So that's the way we worked, and we worked very closely together.
You'll love it. Trust me, I know. But
I fell into this very happily. I was on the set of Zorro the Gay Blade, and they were having a Christmas party, and I had a red beard. And so they said, hey, you want to be Santa Claus? And I did it. The producer saw me, and he said, boy, you got to play Santa Claus sometime. And I was recommended a couple times. I did a few commercials of Santa Claus, and then I started working for Hallmark. I've done about 5 or 6 Hallmark movies as Santa Claus. Lots of commercials, lots of TV guest roles, and it's just, I love the role. It's an easy role for me because I love the character of Santa Claus. I believed in Santa Claus until I was in the Navy. That was very disappointing. Once I started to grow the beard, it just, that I was getting cast as that, whether I wanted it or not. But it's been a lot more fun to have a real beard and be able to go that way. And sometimes I grow it big, sometimes I grow it shorter. I'm getting ready to work at the, each year I go over to the Academy for Motion Picture and Arts and Science and do Santa Claus. Last year was for the anniversary of It's a Wonderful Life. This year it's the anniversary of Miracle on 34th Street. So all that stuff is fun, and I do, you know, things, different toy drives and stuff like that. I'll go. I don't do malls or anything like that, but I will go and do some charity work for kids and stuff. I guess that's what kind of drew me towards Savannah Smiles as well, is because it's about a little kid who's being demanded on to lose their innocence before they got a chance to be a child. I've always been a promoter of being a kid. I don't think I've ever really grown up. I think that's important. I think it's an important lifestyle to have an imagination and to believe in fantasy, and so to play that character was very easy for me. I had a lot of fun, and still I just get, for me, getting older is production value for Santa. It was Mark's project. I mean, he wrote it. He had just finished doing a Christmas movie that he had done. Everything was his say. The director was under his tutelage.
Well, Pierre was a nice guy, and he, not a great sense of humor or anything, but he and I worked together very well, because I would tell him this is the way I would do it, or this is the way I see it as I wrote it, and he would film it that way. He'd say, yeah, that's good. And so, like I say, like, play, I was right there with him the whole time. And he was not one of those guys who says, don't tell me how to direct kind of a guy, I said, I'm not telling anybody how to direct, but I said, when a writer writes something, he visualizes it. I even write for actors. I cast the thing before I write it in my head, And at one point, Pierre said, well, I'm not going to direct these flashbacks because we won't be using them. They'll be on the cutting room floor. I said, Pierre, that's what this whole film is about, is those flashbacks. He said, well, I don't want to direct them. I said, okay, I'll direct them. So I directed them. Where he jumps off the truck, where he runs after the truck. That scene where that kid runs after the truck and they let him on the truck, the whole parody of that, the irony of that, of he never caught the truck, but finally did, was the success of that little, meeting that little girl. I mean, how I got that, that's brilliant. I don't know how I did that, because I ain't brilliant.
I thought that there was a lot of possibilities in the film to do physical comedy, and that's really what I do. I was a big fan of Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello, and I studied Commedia dell'arte at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. I became part of a Commedia troupe. So I had all this physicality, and that's really what I was getting hired for. I would do a flip at my auditions, and they go, oh my God, are you okay? And then they go, ooh, how can we get this in? And I actually put my flip into the film. I had Savannah flip me, and we played that a lot before we ever put it on, even tried it. It wasn't written in the script, but because Mark knew I could do that, it's production value. Let's try to find a place for it. I do this, what I call anti-juggling, where I drop things and keep trying to pick them up and drop them. And I showed it to Mark, and he said, oh, that's funny, but yeah, I don't have a place for that. And then we went to the grocery store, and I'm carrying out groceries, and I said, well, this could be a place for that. So during rehearsal, I started dropping things and picking them up and juggling with them, and he said, okay, let's do it. You can do that. And so we put that into the film, and the cantaloupe stole the scene, because at the end I drop a cantaloupe and we're trying to get away, and as the car pulls out, the cantaloupe pops up, hits the grill and sticks to the car and leaves with us. It was very fun. It was great because Mark was a little bit more demanding because he's the writer on the set, so that's always a little bit difficult. And he's a producer, and he's the star, and all those things. So, and Mark always knew what he wanted, but he never shut himself off for creativity. So they gave each other back and forth. It was always a collaboration.
Maybe she robbed a bank or something.
Mark Miller was fantastic. He knew what he wanted, and that's really great, because if somebody doesn't know what they want, then you don't know what you can give them. And Mark was really very specific about what he wanted. Our costumes were going into like Ross's or whatever, and trying on things, and he'd say, well, what do you like? And yeah, well, that's not quite what I'm thinking about, and this is more, and you know, it was that kind of stuff. We had a lot of fun on set with Bridget. I mean, I had fun in all my scenes because they got to be so creative. I mean, Mark let us discover things. I liked the scene where we discover Savannah telling the story of Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox. That was a fun one. Doing the flip, because we had to do the flip about 10 times, was fun. The outdoor stuff was fun because, you know, Utah was so beautiful. Going up and being, you know, knowing that you were king of the Bridal Falls, that we were allowed to go and do things that other people couldn't, was fantastic. But honestly, the whole thing was joyous. The most heartwarming to me was the park, where we're the montage scene and the goodbye scene. I loved the goodbye scene where Savannah's saying goodbye to us and I give her a kiss on the cheek, and I love that scene. I also like the funny scenes a lot. I love the grocery store scene. That was a lot of fun to create and build up and stuff.
I'll tell you first-hand knowledge of the impact. They had a party for the film people in Oklahoma City. Again, hosted by our funding guy. His name was Hal Clifford. Hal Clifford was the guy named of the investor. And so they had a big deal premiere for the film in Oklahoma City, which is where Hal lived. We were all driven to the event in cop cars, because there was a cop car chase sequence in the film. They ran the film for this audience, invited audience only, invited only. And after the film was over, I was going into the men's room, and there was a guy talking to another guy who was saying, I'm canceling our skiing big trip this weekend. I'm taking my daughter to the movies. I just haven't done this the right way. So it immediately had picture, result.
The premiere of the movie was incredible. First, you have an enthusiastic crowd anyway going in, but nobody knowing what they're being enthusiastic about, other than it was made here. It was made here. Let's go see. But boy, when we came out, people are crying, people are happy, they hugging you. We don't even know who these people are, and they're coming up and hugging you and telling you, oh my God, I'm so happy I saw this with my family, and oh, you got, you know, it was just the most wonderful feeling you can get. That's, you know, you never get to have that kind of contact with an audience. Most of our lives, we go in and sit quietly behind and listen to the audience, and you can hear the reactions, but to get physically involved with them was pretty amazing, and it was a big deal for them, and they were so happy that it was a good movie, you know, and a family movie. It was probably the best premiere I've been to of one of my movies, just because of the reaction, the heartfelt reaction. You know, you can go to big production type movie, special effects, and they all come out and go, oh gosh, I've never seen anything like that. It was wonderful. But these are personal touches that you made, and that's really rewarding.
Those Girl Scouts started in Savannah, Georgia. The Girl Scouts did. The lady who started the Girl Scouts was from Savannah, Georgia. She's still alive, and they wanted to make some money for the organization, so they said, why don't we sell cookies? So they said, what are we going to call them? They said, well, the lady said, since we began in Savannah, why don't we call them something like Savannah Smiles? I said, okay. So they made up the cookies, and then one of the ladies said, after they'd already sent them to the manufacturer, the cookie cook, people making the cookies, she said, you know, there's a wonderful family film by that same name to the lady who named them. She said, there is? I said, yeah, we'll get the film for you. So they got the film for her. She said, oh my God. She said, we better call this guy. So they called me and they said, listen, we got these cookies. I said, I know, I bought some yesterday at the market. They're selling them outside the market. And I said, Savannah Smiles cookies? They said, oh my God, you're not going to sue us, are you? I said, no. I said, come on. You can sell cookies in the lobby of any film I ever make. As a matter of fact, you can sponsor my next film if you want. We'll give you part of the grosses. She said, okay. You know, this is the lady that started, and that's how we got the cookies. So I gave my permission for them to use the name.
I really love Savannah Smiles just because of the reaction of the audience. I don't think we knew, I knew it was a sweet film, but I didn't know it was going to hit families like it did. And it was so popular, and the kind of responses from people coming up and saying, oh, Bootsy, Bootsy, I love Savannah Smiles. Me and my daughter watch this all the time. You know, that kind of thing where you're bringing the family together just gives you a great feeling that you really did accomplish something extra other than just some visual entertainment, but actually some feelings and emotions that came with it. So that was great. I mean, I went to Africa for 6 months and did Sheena, which was a childhood dream. But as in really responses to movies I've done, this has been the one where families have been just joyous about being able to see it. It's a tradition to watch, and when my daughter comes to visit, they say, you know, I've got to watch this with them again, and it's really wonderful to have brought that to people.
The thing that makes Savannah Smiles so beautiful is that love, wherever it comes from, can make a family. 2, 3 people can make a family that were never loved, that just, you know, love to be together and laugh together and eat together and share life with.
The reason that this has lasted so long and has been so popular, and really was incredibly popular when it first came out, and I still hear about it every day of my life, people come up to me and talk about this movie, is because of the family. It's about the creation of a family. It's about the rejection of a family, and of what is important about a family, because it's not the cliche mother, father, child. It's love and respect. It's support. It's I've got your back. That's family, and was built right in front of you in this film. You could see the elements coming together. It's an old-fashioned movie, but what makes it old-fashioned is the heart, the soul of the movie, and that gets you every time. It gets me every time, and I've seen it a million times. But every time that ending comes up, I tear up. You know, it's that kind of film.